God. Well, here we go. Hello, my beautiful dolls. My name is Reyes, and welcome to my stunning YouTube channel. It's been a while since I said those words, but I'm back on YouTube. Can you believe that? It's been 25, more like 85 years. But I'm here bringing you yet another look. After all these years, I finally decided to sit down and just, play with makeup and show you this Marilyn Monroe, Lepore, with my own little twist to it, sort of look. As you can tell, it's very pale, a lot of blush, a lot of lipstick, red nails, my signature highlights. I feel like this is my first time actually sitting here with the new hairdo and sort of recording a video, but yeah, I had a lot of fun creating this video. If you want to see how I created this look right here, get some tea, get some snacks, get some makeup if you want to, and let's get into the makeup artistry of it all. Well, look who's back to YouTube, bitch. Ooh. So, I already have my skin prepped and moisturized and primed. And for that I used a toner that I like to use all the time. This is something new. I haven't been using toner like for the majority of my life, and like maybe like a year ago I started using toner, and honestly it kind of changed my skin for the better. Like, it gives you this extra boost of moisture, which, for my dry skin is exactly what I need. And for the moisturizer I use Elizabeth's I Want cream. It's supposed to be an eye cream, but I like to use it all over my face. I have an oily dehydrated skin, so it's very thick, and I feel like of all the creams that I've used so far, this one works for me, and it might not be the best one. Some people may say that it's shit, but listen, for me, if it works, it works. And at this point, if it doesn't break me out, I'm happy with it. Okay? Okay. And for face primer, I used Photo Focus Face Primer by Wet n Wild. This is one of my favorite primers at the moment. It feels like a lotion when you first apply it, but then it mattifies the skin on the areas where you applied it. And for an oily girly like me, this is definitely the way to go. So for foundation, I'm going to be using the Skinnovation Matte Foundation by Influence. And the way I like to work is I like to apply foundation sort of to...
Hello?
Okay, there we go. I like to apply foundation on my forehead and my nose first, so I can do my eyes and my brows sort of like without, touching the foundation, because I like to rest my hand and my pinky and whatever, and it's just like, I don't have time for like touching up foundation thousands of times throughout the process, so this is just how I like to roll. And the way I do it, I just basically put some foundation on this palette, take my beauty blender, I work the foundation into the sponge, and then I go ham on the skin. This is a very simple foundation look, and by that I mean like there's not a lot of like contouring or like structure like usually I like to do when I want to be dramatic and draggy and what have you, but this one is sort of like, it's just foundation, highlight, and blush, and honestly that's it. When I'm done with applying foundation with the sponge, I sort of like take the leftover foundation from the palette with this brush. It's like a dense blending brush, and I like to go over my nose, because over the years my nose became quite porous, and what sponge does basically just applies the foundation sort of like on top of the skin, and it doesn't really like buff it into the pores. So to prevent like any bald spots, I just go in and basically like fix that with a brush. Now that I look clinically insane, I'm gonna take my Ground Paint Stick in the shade 070, and I'm just gonna go in and highlight all the areas that need to be highlighted. And I usually go with my finger, because this product is quite hard if you go with a stick, straight out with a stick to your skin. So I like to warm it up with my finger and just apply it, going over the eyebrows a little bit. Then taking this blending brush, I'm just picking up and I'm going to highlight my nose. and I basically just go sort of like down the bridge first, connecting the highlight on the forehead, then taking similar brush, it's basically the same one, just a clean one, and I'm blending out the edges. Basically what it's gonna do, it's gonna sort of like imitate my regular nose contouring without like any contouring applied to the nose, because I don't want it to be like too dark. I just want sort of like the same structure without like any sort of like harsh shades of brown. And when I'm happy with that, I'm taking the same brush and I'm doing like a little dot. And if I feel like it's too big, I just take the clean brush, blend out the edges like that. Then with the same brush, I basically just do my under nose highlights. I don't know what to call them, but this is basically how I like to do it. This is like a quick version of the drag makeup, I would say, that I usually do, sort of like same structure, well, similar structure, but a little bit more blended and not as harsh and not as intense. Then taking this blending brush that I used earlier on my nose, and what I'm gonna do is basically just sort of bring that under nose highlight and define the bridge of the nose. So something like this. Then I'm gonna take my beauty blender and I'm gonna blend out the forehead highlight. And like, if I have any residue of that white highlight, I just sort of like go over the entire forehead, because for this particular look, I want my skin to be like super pale, because it's sort of like Marilyn Monroe, Amanda Lepore inspired, particularly if you're talking about Marilyn, in the movie The Bus Stop, she is super pale. She's literally like Snow White, and like her shoulders, her face, and this whole look is basically inspired by that particular moment. So basically, the paler the skin looks, in this case, the better.
Look at her gleaming there.
Starts
Pale and white.
and
I'm gonna take Pillowy Face in the shade Rumor Zero, and I'm gonna put a little bit on the back of my hand, and then I'm gonna pick it up on a fluffy blending brush like this, and I'm just gonna sort of like haphazardly apply it on the eyelid, going a little bit under the eye as well. Basically what we're doing is we just need sort of like a sticky base for the eyeshadow, and then I'm gonna take this dense blending brush and I'm sort of like going to blend out any rough edges and also press the base into the eyelid. Then taking this brown eyeshadow by Effect in the shade M1053, I'm going to take it on a flat brush, and basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the wet base, particularly the eyelid area. Taking the same blending brush, I'm just going to apply Pillowy Space on the bottom lash line, and taking a smaller brush that I used to contour my nose, I'm just going to make sure that the entirety of the bottom lid is covered. And I'm taking the same eyeshadow and sort of like a dense detailing brush, I'm just gonna apply it on the bottom eyelid, and I'm basically just setting the wet base with the eyeshadow. Now that we have sort of like our base shape laid down, I'm gonna take a fluffy brush and the same eyeshadow, and I'm just gonna really work the product into that fluffy brush, kicking back any excess. And now I'm just gonna sort of tap and blend until I'm happy with the result. And if I feel like I'm losing the intensity on the outer corner of the eye, I can always go back with the same sort of detailing brush and just apply a little bit more of that same eyeshadow. I went ahead and did the second eye of camera, but what I'm doing now is basically taking the same blending brush, the detailing blending brush, and I'm basically just really defining the crease and preparing it for sort of like the cut crease moment that we're going to do later, and just really focusing the eyeshadow sort of like on that particular area. Now taking the black eyeshadow from the Color Psych eyeshadow palette, I'm basically going to take it on a blending brush and I'm going to define the crease like I did before with a brown eyeshadow, but this time I'm just going to make it a little bit smokier. Then taking a fluffy brush, I'm basically just buffing out the edges and marrying two colors together. Now I'm taking black on a detailing brush and I'm basically just defining the bottom lash line. And I'm only doing it halfway because I don't want the eye to be like super dark. I'm gonna take this pencil brush and I'm just going to blend out the black that I just applied. And I want to be really precise and careful with it just because I don't want it to be all over the place. And I don't want to drag it too low. Okay, now that the boring part is over, let's cut that crease. Let's cut that crease, bitch! So, I'm gonna take some micellar water and some Q-tips, and I'm basically going to cut the crease, remove all the unwanted eyeshadow, and then we're gonna cut it with Pillowy base. And for that, I'm relaxing the eye, and I'm just marking sort of like the highest point, and then I'm slowly, as you can tell, removing all the unwanted eyeshadow. And when I'm cutting the crease, I sort of like look at it from different angles, because from one angle it can look fierce and cunty, and from the other angle it's just like completely busted, and you just gotta see what you're doing and sort of like adjust it to your liking. And I'm just taking the same Q-tip and I'm basically just removing any excess eyeshadow, because we're gonna set it with white, and the last thing you want is for it to turn muddy brown. But you have to understand, I'm not removing like the entirety of the eyeshadow, I'm only removing like sort of like half of it. Okay, now that the crease is cut, I'm just blending out those spots that are a little bit harsh. And I'm gonna take my flat Pillowy brush with a Pillowy base, and let's get to cutting. When I'm picking up the product, I'm basically focusing it on sort of like the tip of the brush, and I'm just stamping it on. Now I'm taking the blending brush and I'm buffing out all the harsh edges of the cut crease on the inner corner, on the outer corner, and also on the eyelid. And I'm going to take a detailing blending brush with the same brown eyeshadow on it, and I'm just going to buff out the edges so there's a nice and smooth transition. This is a step that I sometimes neglect, and then I set the crease and it just ends up looking really patchy, and just blending it when it's already set is sort of like not the way to go. Now I'm going to take a mix of white eyeshadows that I have over here and a flat brush, and I'm just going to set the crease and make sure that there is no creasing happening. And we're just gonna pack that white eyeshadow on like there's no tomorrow. Then taking a smaller brush, I'm just gonna set sort of like the edges of the crease, really making sure that I'm packing that eyeshadow on. I'm gonna do the other eye and I'll be right back. Okay, so now that the eyes are almost done, we need to do eyeliner. And I'm gonna do sort of like the first round of eyeliner, sort of like the mapping it out, and then later on, when the whole like foundation and everything is done, I'm gonna go back in with the gel eyeliner and we're gonna sort of like solidify it. So to do that, I'm gonna take this brush right here, very thin, angled brush, and some black eyeshadow, and I'm just gonna take a tiny little bit, and basically I'm just gonna stamp it on like very slightly, kind of like dragging it out like that. Gonna do the same thing on the other side like that, and then I'm gonna take a tiny blending brush and I'm basically just gonna ever so slightly blend down, not up but down. And then I'm gonna take some brown eyeshadow and I'm gonna connect sort of the bottom portion of the eye to that liner. Same thing on the other side, blending down, not up. And then you're gonna take that same brush and you're gonna sort of join the liner with the rest of the eyeshadow so it looks cohesive. And if there's like a little bit of sort of like unblended situation going on, just take that detailing brush, the pencil brush, not detailing brush but the pencil brush, and just smudge it all together. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna map out the top eyeliner. So I'm taking the same black eyeshadow from the Clarisonic palette and I'm just gonna very carefully place that line. This is not the finished product, this is sort of like the guide for later liner to sort of like rely on. I mean, if you want to keep it like nice and soft like that, you can keep it like that. I mean, it's pretty intense because the eyeshadow from this palette is top notch. Maybe if you feel like it's not sharp enough, don't worry, we're gonna correct it. I'm gonna take this thin hairbrush and I'm gonna take some Crayola Sweet and stick on it And I'm just gonna go under the liner and then sort of like in between correcting the bottom liner as well. So something like this. And then we're gonna set that negative space with white eyeshadow. Now it's time for eyebrows. To do my eyebrows, I'm gonna use these two shades from this Revolution eyeshadow palette. And the way I like to do it is I like to take my same angle brush that I used for my eyeliner. I pick up this shade right here and I start mapping out the brows sort of like by flicking the brush very slightly, creating like hair-like strokes. And then I sort of arch the brow and drag it like that. I used to do my brows very thick, but now I try to keep it very thin. Well, not very thin, but like rather thin than thick, because I feel like I went through a phase of like really bushy brows, and it was, at some point, it was giving too much. At some point, it was just giving crazy. Then I'm gonna take this shade right here, and I'm mainly gonna do sort of like the bottom of the brow and sort of like the roots, just to create illusion that there's like more dimension. I'm gonna do the second brow off camera and I will be right back. Ta-da! So now it's time for concealer or the highlight. And the way I like to do my brow highlight is I like to take my P. Louise brush and pile onto a paint stick, and I just place the brush sort of like under the arch and I stamp it, and then I tilt the brush and I continue stamping until I get the desired shape. And for the tail, I just sort of follow it and follow the highlight and the arch until I basically just cut the tail. Sometimes if I feel like the tail is a little bit too thick, I can always just go higher with the highlight and just cut the brow the way I want it. And then I'm gonna take same blending brush from before, and I'm just gonna gently blend that white into the foundation, but also into the eyeshadow. And I'm just gonna very gently tap it. And to sort of like regain back eyeshadow that we had, you can always take the same brush with the leftover product, meaning that brown eyeshadow from before, and you can just sort of tap it. And this is basically one brow down. I'm gonna do the second one off camera and we can move on to the foundation. Girl. Anyway. Okay, so if I become a little bit shiny, before applying foundation, I like to blot my face with some tissue and apply some of that same primer all over. Now I'm gonna take the same foundation from before. I'm gonna put it on the palette, and using the same sponge, I'm just gonna start applying it pretty much all over the face. I must say, I didn't like this foundation at first, but now that I'm on the third, I believe, tube, I'm kind of like living for it. It's very affordable and it's like medium coverage. I wouldn't say it's like full coverage, but it's definitely a strong medium coverage. And I mean, like, the match, it's not the perfect match, I would say, but it's definitely close to my skin tone. It's a little bit more neutral, I would say. And as you can tell, I'm very like olive green. One thing that bothers me is that brow bone highlight, which I also forgot to set. So before I forget, let's do that. I'm just gonna take the same white eyeshadow from before, and I'm just gonna pop it on the brow bone. Okay, much better. So, now that the foundation is on, I'm gonna do a little bit of concealing, because there's one spot that just bothers me. Actually, there are two spots that bother me. And this one right here. I'm using our CMA palette that I've had for ages. And there's this little fucker. It has to go. Now, let's do some highlighting. Taking the same Curl and 2 paint stick and the buffer brush, I'm just sort of buffing the highlights on, a little bit on the chin, and then under the eye, even a little bit on the forehead as well. Now I'm just gonna blend it out with the same brush, switching to my sponge. Just gonna soften up the edges. Okay, for blush, I'm gonna be using this lipstick from Influence in the shade 07 Pathfinder, and it's this gorgeous red. I'm gonna be applying it later on my lips, but for now, I'm just gonna put a little bit of it on the palm of my hand. Not only is it going to provide a gorgeous blush, but it's also going to match the lipstick later, which is exactly what we want. Taking this blending brush, I'm just going to pick up some of that lipstick from my hand and place it where I want my blush to be. And then I'm going to take a clean brush and I'm just going to blend it out. And the way I like to blend out the blush is basically the same way I like to apply foundation or any cream, really. I like to staple it on. I feel like that way you sort of like keep the intensity of the color, but you know, at the same time, you get a really airbrushed, blended finish. And if I feel like I need more pigment, I can always go back, pick it up, put it on, and then just blend it out. Okay, now it's finally time to set the foundation into place. And the way I like to set my foundation is to take sort of like the corresponding colors and apply them. For example, if I want to set the highlighter, I'm going to use white and sort of like on the sides of my face, on the outer portion of my face, I like to use something that is like more skin color. So that's how I like to do it. You don't have to do it. You can use just like a transparent setting powder of your choice, which I'm also going to do later. I like to double set everything because it's kind of like, in this case, it's not a lot of creams, but it's still kind of like a lot of things are going on. And considering I'm also oily, I sort of like to ensure that my makeup stays on no matter what. And I feel like that technique not only provides the coverage, but also sort of like ensures that my makeup will stay on no matter what throughout the entire day. So let's do that. I'm gonna make sure that there's no creasing anywhere. And first I like to set my nose and sort of like the area around the nose. And you can already see the difference. I'm going to switch to a bigger powder brush and I'm just gonna set all the highlights, starting with the forehead, then under the eyes, the upper lip, and of course the chin. And I go over sort of like the top portion of the blush, and even like on top of the eyeshadow. And then taking skin color powder, this is like a mixture of a bunch of powders that I had. I just put them in the same container. And I'm gonna take it on the same brush and I'm gonna set sort of like a rest on my face with it, going under that blush. And as you can see, not only does it set everything in place, but it also provides some extra coverage, which is exactly what I'm looking for. I'm going sort of like over the highlights to kind of soften everything. Then I'm gonna go and set the forehead. Now that everything is set, it's time to set the face, like for sure, like to solidify, like to make sure that that makeup doesn't go anywhere. And to do that, I like to use Coty's Earth powder. And you know, one thing I will have to say about Miss Coty is that when I started using it, it used to be a formula that had talc in it. And you know, there are a lot of things in the world happening right now, and you know, a lot of serious things. But on this channel, you know, just like Delta Work, you know, one thing we have in common with Delta Work is that we like to fry small fish. And one thing I will say is that I'm really mad at Coty for changing the formula because they replaced talc with mica. And if you don't know what mica is, it's basically a shining agent that you can see in highlighters, and eyeshadows, and what have you. And it doesn't really act the same way as talc does. And I didn't know that. They changed the formula. And when I first applied the powder on my face, I was like, that's not...
In the sense that...
That's not it. That's not it. It doesn't look right. I'm looking shiny. What's going on here, Cody? And then I look at the cap and it says talc-free formula. I feel betrayed, backstabbed, and bamboozled.
Yeah.
Miss Cody, what happened? What happened? What is going on, Miss Cody? Why would you change the formula? Like, I get it. There's like the whole thing about like clean beauty and the whole like talk about like how talc allegedly causes cancer, but I don't know. It's been fine for years. Everything's been fine for years. The powder was nice, and all of a sudden you just decide to fuck it up for everyone. So it feels personal. I'm just gonna say that. It feels very personal, and if anyone from Cody is watching, I just want to say, please bring back the old formula and bring back Laura Jean perfume. Thank you. Now, you might be asking me, Maya, why don't you use a sponge to set your face? And the answer is, I used to do that, but for some reason, I just like to use a powder puff. I feel like it really, like you can really get your foundation to set when you're using powder puff. Where with a sponge, I feel like it's more of a soft application, you know? It's more of a sort of like, you're still pressing the powder into your face, but I feel like it's not as intense as when you do it with a powder puff. While my face is baking, I need to paint my neck and my décolletage, so I'm gonna be using the same foundation, and I need to get my hair out of the way. I like to use brush because I feel like it's a little bit more faster. I still go back with a sponge just to kind of like blend everything out, but when it comes to like sort of like overall application, I feel like brush just does the job pretty fast. And since I'm going for Marilyn Monroe fantasy, I really have to lighten my chest and my neck to match the rest of my face. As I said before, this makeup is inspired by the movie Bus Stop, where she was completely just white. So that is what I'm going for. I know it looks like it's a lot of white, but trust me, it's gonna blend out into the skin and it's gonna look gorgeous. I will say I'm not a huge fan of body makeup, but I hate the way it feels. But when it comes to looks, obviously, I feel like it's a must, especially if you have a lot of foundation, a lot of makeup on your face. Please match your chest. Please apply foundation on your neck, on your chest. I don't put foundation on my arms. Some people do. I know Trixie does, and she always like talks about like how everyone has to put like foundation on their arms, on their hands, like as far as performers go, but I don't know. It just feels yucky. I'm sorry, like I'd rather put like some highlighter on, but foundation on hands, I don't think so. Now I'm gonna take baby powder and I'm basically going to set the entire body. Now it's time to kick off the bake. Since I like my blush to be really bright, I'm gonna sort of like start kicking off the bake and intensifying the blush. And to start off, I'm gonna use this bubblegum pink first to sort of like bring back life into the skin. And then to really deepen the blush, I'm gonna use these shades of pink, and I'm just sort of like picking up the product, kicking it off on the palm of my hand, and very carefully applying the blush. And the way I like to apply it is I stipple it on very lightly. Sometimes I like to drag it a little bit, but mostly I just stipple it on. Then I'm taking the deepest shade of pink and I'm really deepening sort of like the outer portion of the blush. Then I'm gonna take the bigger brush and I'm just gonna buff it out a little bit. Now I'm just going to take my BH Cosmetics highlighting palette, which I've had for years, and I'm just gonna take the lightest shade of highlighter and I'm gonna start highlighting the face. And taking a smaller brush, I'm just highlighting the nose. And I sort of just like to do like a stripe down the nose. And then a little bit on the tip. And of course we can forget the brow bone. And I'm gonna take this pigment right here. I don't actually know what it is. I feel like it's just like mica. I've had it forever, so I don't know like what it is, but it sparkles really pretty, so and that's good enough for me, honestly. So I'm just gonna apply it sort of like on the same spots where I applied the highlighter before. Can you see that sparkle? It's so gorgeous. Then I'm gonna take this gorgeous highlighter from a canceled brand and I'm going to apply it all over my body. I'm really focusing on the shoulders because my shoulders are going to be exposed and I really want my body to shine because I'm going for that sort of like angelic look. Okay, now I'm going to set my entire face and body with setting spray and I will be right back. Let's do some finishing touches on the brows. So since my highlights are yellow now, I like to use a yellow pomade to sort of like add a little bit of yellow hairs in the brows to match the highlights. This one is from ColourPop and I put a little bit of Duraline in it just to sort of like revitalize the pomade because let's be honest, I've had it for a while. And I just sort of like work it on the back of my hand and go to town. So something like this. Now I'm gonna go ahead and curl my lashes up to share. And because I have a very odd eye shape, I guess, I have to go back with an individual lash curler, sort of like fix the outer corner and the inner corner as well. And then I'm gonna take my Vegan Sabo Cabaret Waterproof Mascara and I'm just gonna do my lashes. And before I do my bottom lashes, I would like to take some white inkblot liner and I wanna pop it into my waterline. And now we can do the mascara. It's time for eyeliner. And for eyeliner, I'm gonna be using NYX Professional Makeup Gel Liner. And not gonna lie, I don't like doing eyeliner, especially black eyeliner, because first of all, I have hooded eyelids and it's just, every time like it's like heart surgery. So first I'm gonna start with my bottom liner and I'm just gonna do the sort of like the inner corner. I feel like this Secret to Good liner is just working fast and making sure that it's nice and liquid. That's why I'm using Duraline. And since I have very hooded eyelids, I'm just making sure that my line across the lash line is very thin because I don't want it to transfer to my upper eyelid. And now the liner that we did before, I'm just gonna trace it with the same brush. And when I'm doing the liner, I'm sort of focusing the pressure on the inner corner, and when I go out, I sort of like really go in with the light hand to make sure that the tail is like really thin. So something like that. I'm gonna do this to the other side and I will be right back. Let's put on some lashes. So the way I like to apply glue on the lashes is, first of all, I take out the wand and I sort of like put it on the back of my hand, like that. Then I pick it up with a spatula and I basically just place it on the lash. This is a very like demure lash, very wispy, very girly, and I like to concentrate the glue on the outer corner, especially in the inner corner, because I feel like these are like the most problematic areas. And then I set it aside and I do the same thing with another lash. By the way, the eyelash glue I'm using is by Catrice. This is my favorite type of eyelash glue. It's sort of this white, bluish color, and then it dries down to completely clear. And so what I like to do while my lashes are drying, I put some glue on my lash line because I feel like that way the lashes stick much better. And then before I place the lash on my eye, I basically just make sure that there's some extra glue on it And again, the best thing about this glue is that it dries down completely clear. You cannot see it at all. It can get a little bit shiny if you put it like on the wrong area, but I feel like it's not that big of a deal comparing to other lash glues that dry down either white or yellow. We don't like that. Now I'm gonna take my tweezers and I'm just gonna place that lash where I want it to be. And while the glue is drying down, I'm sort of like going back and readjusting it. Now that the lashes are on, let's do some lips. And I'm gonna use Dream Lip Liner by Golden Rose in the shade 515. This is the same lip liner I've been using ever since I started sort of like doing drag and makeup in general. It's just the perfect shade of red, so I love it. It's good, it's great. What do you know about this? What do you know about this? I love makeup. Now I'm just going to fill in the entire lip with the lip liner. Then taking a little bit of concealer on a flat brush, I'm just going to correct around the lip for the perfect contour. Now taking some RC powder on the powder puff, I'm just going to set concealer in place. Now while the concealer is setting, I'm going to take my brow tint that I've had for 10 years and I'm going to do my beauty marks. Now I'm just going to kick off the bake and then taking a lip brush and the same lipstick I used for blush, I'm going to apply it all over the lip. Okay, the lipstick is on and I'm absolutely living for this look. Now I'm gonna go off camera and add some finishing touches and I will be right back to reveal the final fantasy. Well, isn't she lovely? Alright my dolls, so this is the finished look. I really hope you enjoyed the video and you learned something from it. I have to say this is definitely one of my favorite current looks from sort of like my rolodex of looks. I do this type of makeup when I really want to feel glam, but I don't want to do too much, which, I mean, listen, to some people this might be too much, and why would you want to be not enough? Listen, too much is great. Too much is awesome, and if you want to wear too much makeup, just do it. Why not? I mean, listen, we're on a flying rock, and this might end, honestly, whenever, tomorrow. Why not? So you gotta be the best, your best self every day. Well, maybe not every day, but as much as you possibly can. And I will say this look is definitely sort of like the reflection of me trying to sort of like be casual, but also be like glamorous. Sort of like, you know, ooh, I didn't try hard. I didn't try hard at all. I'm just, you know, I just woke up and put some lipstick on and now I'm ready to go. Let me know what you think about this Marilyn Monroe, Lepore sort of like inspired look with my own twist to it. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And I will see you in the next video. Mwah. Bye, dolls.